I'll turn on my mic. Sound a lot better. Good afternoon and welcome to our meeting of the Municipality of Meaford Council this afternoon. And I'm going to begin by asking Councillor Harley Greenfield to read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people for their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you. And now I'll ask everyone to join me in a moment of silent reflection as we consider the business before us. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing no one indicating that, just remind you that you can declare at any time that it occurs to you. Announcements. And maybe I might ask Rob if you would just tell everyone what you just learned. So we can hear it.
Some new news. Actually, I have a couple of things. And actually, just to start off with, there has been discussion about updates from staff on a regular basis at council meetings. Today will be a very preliminary one, but on the go forward under announcements, the CAO's office will be giving announcements on behalf of all senior teams if there's any significant things. We do have some criteria that we've developed on what the basis will be. So stay tuned at council meetings for that. Just some announcements I have this week. I know that council's already aware of this, but it's more for the public. That side road 3 between Gray Road 29 and the second concession south and Force concession south will remain closed throughout the winter months. As structure 15 being the Gillies Bridge won't be completed until 2023. It's being postponed in that there's some temperature sensitive work that must be undertaken that doesn't make sense to do this time of year and will result in substandard work based on that temperature, so it will be postponed. We'll recommence once load restrictions are removed on municipal roads in the spring. The other thing I'll note is that all surrounding public were notified of this on Friday, so they are aware of that as well. We have just learned that Bill 23 received third reading. I understand that committee last week had made some changes, so this is just hot off the presses of 20 minutes ago. So we'll be investigating what those changes were and evaluating those on the go forward. The other thing I will note, good news, our former mayor, Mayor Klumpus, had submitted a name for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Award, and we found out last week that Joanne McKenzie is going to be awarded the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Award this Saturday. We're still working out timing based on conflicts, but it will be this Saturday. She was recommended based on all the work she's done with the Cultural Foundation. So that will be occurring this Saturday.
Great, thank you, CAO, Rob. Members of council, announcements, Rob Urey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, just wanted to announce, I'm sure everybody has seen, if anybody has driven by Market Square today besides Meaford Hall, the Christmas on the Bay event is happening this weekend from December 1st to 4th. There's going to be 17 stalls down there of vendors. I think what's really important to note here is that statistically, it's a European style market, and people may not realize that they've done much analysis and surveys of these kind of events. And 85% of the monies normally spent at these types of events are actually spent in the surrounding businesses. So this the whole thrust of this event was it's been worked on for literally for 11 months by local volunteers, and it is designed to be an economic driver for the town. It is not, it's not truly a nonprofit. Can't be, it's not registered as that, but it is not a money-making venture for the entity. It is an economic driver for the town. So we welcome you to come out to the event. I think it's going to be a fabulous event, and there's going to be entertainment as well throughout the weekend, as well as the vendors, but it's also an opportunity for everyone to support the shops in the town and bring everybody out. So thank you. Hopefully we'll see you all there.
Thanks, Deputy Reeve, sorry, Deputy Mayor Keevan.
You are forgiven, Your Worship. Thank you. And I wanted to make an announcement on behalf of the Rotary Club of Meaford. I know I announced at our last meeting that the club was moving forward with Rotary House, which is inclusive of the food bank and the thrift shop. And I wanted to announce today that we are taking donations now for the thrift shop. And if anyone has any winter items in particular, winter coats and kids' winter items and boots and all of that kind of thing, the thrift shop will be open this week every morning from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. to accept donations. And the shop itself will be open in the next week or two. So we look forward to everyone's support. Thank you very much.
Any further? Oh, yes, Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Very important announcement for all of us kids from 1 to 92. Saturday evening, we're expecting Santa Claus to arrive in our municipality, and the Canets have done a great job putting the parade together, and hopefully we have a good turnout. Hopefully the weather behaves, and I'm sure Santa Claus won't disappoint us.
Great news. Any other announcements? Okay, moving on to public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide council with their comments and questions. If a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda or to ask a public question of council, they may do so either in person at the council chambers or remotely via Zoom, either phone or internet. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or ask a public question must register in advance with Legislative Services by 10 in the morning on the day of, by contacting the deputy clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060 extension 1100. An email with access information will be sent to those who register for remote participation. And the public can watch this meeting live via the Municipality of Meaford's YouTube channel at www.meaford.ca/YouTube. We have no presentations today, but we do have a deputation on an agenda item. And at this time, I'm going to call on Jan Sedaris and also Jim Sullivan, who are going to, I think, share this presentation. Both are members of our Heritage Advisory Committee. Hi, Jan. Can you put your mic on?
First, just Mayor Kettner, councillors, good to see some familiar faces and new faces. Congratulations to everyone. My name is Jan Sedaris. I live in Woodford, which is the old Sydenham Township. And as the mayor just spoke of, Jim Sullivan and myself were on a subcommittee for the property that you're considering for designation. Things are a little changed here with the announcement that the bill has gone through, but I'm going to go ahead with our presentation if that would suit you, just to give you more of the human element that is attached to the report that you have, which is strictly the factual part of why this property is should be considered for heritage designation. I'll refer to the property owner as owner of property 205294 Highway 26, since this has not gone through your decision at the moment. Just to give you a little bit of a background to how we proceeded with this, Jim and myself, we were the two research people on the subcommittee. The owners of property 205294 Highway 26 formally requested the designation, heritage designation by a letter November 11th, 2020, subject to an email from Rob Armstrong of November 10. March 7th, 2021, the Heritage Committee was assigned the task to research the viability of this property being designated. On October 13th, 2021, the Heritage Committee researchers presented a report to our committee, the Heritage Committee, which ratified that the property fulfilled the requirements for heritage designation under the Provincial Heritage Act. Of course, that's the act that a few minutes ago was intact, and now I assume the new act, which is becoming law, which when my unprofessional mind read, I found there was an awful lot there that wasn't there to give direction. There was a lot of referral to things would be discussed after the act passed. So we're working through that. The timeline research was done on this property from March 21st to October 21st, which was 7 months. COVID did provide a challenge for us, just because you had to be careful through the restrictions and that. To date, March 21st to November 22nd, to November 2022 is 20 months. There was a 13-month delay with regard to COVID. Staff was experiencing all kinds of complications there too, I understand, restricted working hours and additional work-related requirements. The structure of our research at the committee, Jim and myself, was to speak with the owner to establish the motive, the true motive for requesting designation. That's very important because the designation does carry different conditions on resale of property and working with the property. There were visits to the site for inspection, and the historical research that we did included the October 2002 that was done by the Archaeological Services Incorporated, which was outlining building and cultural landscape assessment of Highway 26 from Owen Sound to Meaford. Highway 26 used to be called Center Road when we had all our little communities along there. And Bayview was one of the small communities in this area. They referred to the property 205294 on Highway 26 as being BHF 26, a settlement at the crossroads community of Bayview and an agricultural activity. To go to the real crux of why the property had been requested to be designated, I personally spoke to the owner on site twice through emails and through 2 or 3 phone calls. We wanted to be sure that the motive was in consideration with the requirements from the Heritage Act. The owner of property 205294 Highway 26 never spoke once of a financial aid or advantage financially. He was very committed to securing the future safety of the building. It is the last building existing of Bayview community. He was very passionate with the historic ambiances that surrounded his home, and I must say the property and home are extremely well maintained.
Jan, if I didn't just I'm just going to remind you, you've already used twice the time that you have. So.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
So I just want to be aware.
Much quicker here.
Yes, really
sorry.
only 2 minutes. And
so just to conclude, it is a simple desire to save this property. And it is the last tangible memory of a thriving community that all has disappeared. Now, with this change in the bill, I would like to point out that this property requested designation. The owner requested this much before this bill was even probably being considered. And the value of heritage, of course, as you know, financial resources for tourism, for marketing the personality of the community, for encouraging an environment that will provide more residential and development. We feel that the way the heritage designation was set up, and presumably will still continue to some degree, it is a bonus for council because the owner must maintain and has the financial incentives himself or herself to do that. Council has the authority to direct how the property will be kept as part of Meaford. I'm sorry I went over time. It just and I just wanted to say to this is a marvelous ad, really a marvelous ad. It promotes Meaford town, and it says in the heart of a charming historic Meaford. It is a lovely ad. Congratulations on that. If you have other technical questions, I wonder if Jim could answer if there is time, or if you have questions at all.
I'm going to ask council, do you wish to hear from Mr. Sullivan, who I think might flesh out a few more details, and particularly with respect to how we go from here, given what we've just heard today about Bill 23. So can we give you, say, a minute here, Jim? And
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. And I really don't have too much else to say. One of the records for this designation includes the minutes of the meeting where Rob Armstrong brought up the fact that the Heritage Committee should go ahead with this. It was actually asked us to prepare the statement of significance for council's consideration. So that's what we've done. The motion was moved actually by Denise Whaley, who was on the subcommittee at that time with us. So as I could say, as instructed by our CAO, this designation is now on the table for your consideration. And I thank Mr. Smith for including an amendment to the motion for council to consider. One question for Rob. Does this mean the Bill 23 has been enacted? Is that actually law now? Because I was just speaking to someone from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism who extended the comment period until December 9th.
Matt?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it means that the law has passed the Queen's Park chamber, so it is in effect ready to become law. And as soon as the Lieutenant Governor gives royal assent, that it will be law. I am aware the comment period has been extended, but unfortunately, it appears the government decided they didn't really care about that.
Okay.
I guess it's my understanding that until Bill 23 is in force, that any designation that we advertise would not be affected and not superseded by Bill 23.
That would be my understanding too, but with the bill having proceeded through the legislature at this pace, I would be stunned if it doesn't receive royal assent within the next 48 hours. And will take effect immediately, I suspect, because that's what this government appears to want to do. So
if we were to advertise this declaration, within 48 hours, would that it would not?
I would have to get legal advice on that, but no, I don't believe so. It will be the time when the bylaw was actually passed.
It's unfortunate because I believe, Jim, I think you've had 34 similar applications that you've written and have been accepted.
Yes, I chaired a previous heritage committee where we actually did 3 designations. We also completed a 350 plus heritage property register, very complex condition survey. We reviewed over 150 permits with the chief building official and the director of planning. And it is more common than not for a designation to be done by a heritage committee than a professional heritage consultant. But I didn't know that it was passed into law, but since the comment period is still until December 9th, anything published prior to that would not be subject to Bill 23.
And you want to argue that, Matt?
Yes, if it's passed the legislature, it is law. It doesn't matter what the comment period is. They will not go back. Once it's past third reading, that's when the law becomes law, and then it has to be proclaimed royal assent. And as I say, the Lieutenant Governor will likely do that very soon.
I'm going to suggest that we have our discussion on this when we get to it in the
Right.
agenda then. But
Okay.
I want to thank you, Jim and Jan, for coming out today and for your information.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess lost my spot on the agenda. So sorry. This will take a little time. Thank you. Here I am, I guess. So we are at council inquiries, and we'll come back to this when we get to into committee of the whole. Oh, sorry. Public questions first. Are there public questions? And I want to welcome again the members of the public who are here. Any questions for council? If not, then council inquiries. I'm looking around the horseshoe for inquiries from councillors. Shirley.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I had a question. I'm not sure which staff member would like to take it regarding the cemetery master plan that I understand is underway at the moment. And I'm just curious to know the status of that and if there's going to be a survey for the public and when there may be an opportunity for public to participate.
A well-timed question for you, Mr. Mayor. The consultants have been doing a considerable amount of research into what our cemetery, the state of our cemetery, local markets, other opportunities, and so on. I believe that a survey and some information about a public consultation session will be coming out this week. I cannot remember the dates of the session off the top of my head, but I know there will be one on both a Friday and a Saturday to hopefully give as many people as possible the chance to take part. Unfortunately, because of the timeline and the weather, we won't be doing that at the cemetery. The consultations will be at the Meaford and Sabitz Community Centre, but they are at some point in the next couple of weeks, and information will be coming out very soon.
Another question?
I do have another question, Your Worship, if I may. And Tori and Jessica, this one's for you. I'm thinking of Gillies Bridge, Bridge 15, which we know now is going to be closed until the spring, and recognizing the risk, the safety factors of the detour. And now that's going to be multiplied with both bridges 21 and 22 closed and 15 closed through the winter months. So I just wondered about your thoughts on that and if there's any potential for any other solution other than keeping all of these three bridges closed and sending the traffic around those dangerous hills.
Through your worship. So unfortunately, this decision was made last week kind of abruptly with the weather changing, but we are having internal discussions to figure out the best route forward on many items with the bridge closure. So we were talking about what it would look like from a maintenance perspective to ensure that there is routes around. So we will continue to post the detour routes, but we will look at how maybe maintenance can help ensure that those detour routes are acceptable throughout the winter.
And if I may, Your Worship, will that information then be relayed to the residents of that community who are now quite concerned about the hills that they're going to have to travel on this winter?
Through your worship, we can definitely have further communication with the residents as we continue kind of to develop the plan forward in the next week or so. If there's any additional updates, we can for sure provide that directly to the residents, and we'll make sure that information is also available on our website.
Rob?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I guess I'll direct this to Matt because we did have just a brief conversation about it previous, but I just wanted on the record that I was reading the Recreation Master Plan, which has a carry through to 2025. Interestingly, reading that, it was done, I think it was around 2015 to 25. It kind of indicated at that point in time that our municipality, and rightfully so at the time, was not really deemed to be in much of a growth or development stage, and the plan accordingly was not to increase, carry on, or improve or do much, and understandably, obviously things have changed, and now with more development on the horizon, just want to see about the possibility of getting that updated, any plans that could happen to that regard, because I think it will be necessary just to meet what our increasing demands will require.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's a really good question, and definitely something that's been on our minds for a little while now. There's a few changes in context since that report was done, I think, and some of this council will remember that. As you say, Councillor Urig, I think the demographics of our community are changing, and some of our population size as well. The other is that we've kind of taken a bit of a different approach with some of our facilities. So council approved a museum strategic plan about 2 years ago, and we're currently working through a Meaford Hall strategic plan to try and focus in a little bit more on those venues. So I think that the next iteration of the Rec and Culture Master Plan will be much more focused around recreation specifically, because I think the last one tried to cover absolutely everything, and that probably didn't quite get us the focus that we needed to on a few things. We as a staff team would like to move forward with an update for that, but I think we're probably 12 to 18 months away from being able to do that realistically. There are a number of budgetary implications of updating the Recreation Master Plan, not least that we'll have to find somebody to help us do that. But the other is that we as a staff team believe that we need to make some at least preliminary long-term facility decisions before we can really talk about a long-term recreation master plan. If we were to go out to the public right now and say, what would you like in our community? We'll get asked for 6 pickleball courts, a double pad arena, a gym, a multi-use rec facility, and so on. And I think we can probably all recognise that that might be a bit beyond us. So we're planning in the second quarter of next year, hopefully in April, that we'll have a full day with council to talk about our facility needs and some of the issues that we're encountering with administration space and the arena and the swimming pool and a number of other facilities. Because if we can start to flesh out some of our options around those, then I think when we go back to update that Rec Master Plan prior to 2025, with all hopefulness, we'll be able to do that with a much better context for people and sort of say, this is what the sort of the scope or the limit of our abilities is going to be. And so what are our priorities from that, rather than a bit of a dream world.
Other questions from council? Seeing none, then we'll move on to our motions and bylaws for decision under the consent agenda. Items on this list have been before the Committee of the Whole for discussion, and actually there are none. So we can move on to item 9 and actually move into Committee of the Whole. Could I have a motion moved by Councillor Tony and Councillor Bartley? Good. All in favor? Yes. Carried. So we're in Committee of the Whole. And first recommendation is these are Community Service Department items. Be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford, here's the first recommendation. It's Community Services Council appointments for 2022 to 2026. And the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, enact a bylaw to appoint members of council to boards, committees, and 2, direct staff to provide notice of withdrawal from the Grey County Farm Safety Association Board and the Northeast Grey Health Clinics Incorporated Board. Can I have a mover and seconder to put this on the table, please? And moved by Deputy Mayor Keaveney and seconded by Councillor Gehrig. You want to go first? Sorry. Yes, discussion, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and I'm happy to start this conversation. And I'm going to suggest that we deal with them separately, Your Worship, that we discuss the farm safety first and then talk about the Northeast Grey if
makes
you're
sense.
okay with
Yeah.
that. So, and I know we have our representative, Councillor Bell, who has attended the farm safety meeting. So I know you'll want to speak to the importance of the work of that group. And my question, if I may, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Bell, I believe there is another member from Meaford who attends these meetings. And we do provide funding to the farm safety. And I have attended one of those meetings with you, and I have some appreciation for the great work that is accomplished by this group. But I also I'm also of the mind that if we continue to support the group financially, and if there is another representative attending from Meaford, that we may be able to move forward without council representation. But I do look forward to particularly to comments from Councillor Bell on that matter. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, let's go right ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we've all read the report, and I think the report on page 8, I think Mr. Smith wrote a very important line on page 8 that says that the request before council today is not a reflection on the valuable work of these organizations, and it has to do with governance. And whether all of my fellow councillors have went to their mailbox and received some information from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, for sure, with agriculture being an absolutely vital economic entity throughout the municipality of Meaford, it's probably one of our largest, if not the largest. And it has been my privilege to have served as the municipality of Meaford's representative down in Markdale at the farm safety for two sitting councils, 8 years. And just this last fall at the Meaford and St. Vincent Fall Fair, where farm safety puts up a booth, I had the slide presentation and photographs of farm accidents, and a lot of people were pretty surprised when they saw that it usually involved grandpa with his grandchildren and tragedy can occur. So Mr. Smith wrote in his report, it's not about, the value of the group. It's about the governance. So I would like to suggest that we have before us also later on that ties in on page 64, the request from the Farm Safety Board to carry on with some funding. I think that will probably carry on and would be in place. The issue is whether a person such as myself, a person from this council, would be appointed to actually be directed to be involved with the farm safety. And the way that I have looked at this now is the word is being a liaison, a person who could be the liaison, who could attend even just from time to time down at the farm safety to keep abreast of what's going on. But if I'm correct in interpreting the word liaison, that would mean that in my case, for years past, occasionally I submit my mileage, and if you're a liaison, you're not authorized truly by the sitting council or the municipality, and there would be no submission of mileage or things like that. I do believe that it's important for us to have a voice there. Deputy Mayor, you said when you attended, you saw that it was Grey Highlands and Chatsworth and all the other ones that, except for the city of Owen Sound and the town of Hanover, they have appointed members there. So I think for today, and I realize we're talking about governance and what that means, and it is an external body. I agree that it is, and I have read the remarks from the clerk. It's valuable work. So yes, at a minimum, I would like to still maintain an interest there, just like I do in any other body. Whether I'm involved with anything else, that's up to me. But I think today I would like to see us maintain this. Whatever the proper formatting of words are, I'd like to see us as a council say that we would still like to truly appoint somebody. It doesn't have to be myself, but somebody needs to be involved with this entity of agriculture in our municipality. But I look forward to further discussion, Mr. Mayor, before you call a vote.
Sure. So I'd like to hear from other members of council, how you feel about this. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Bell. And I will, to a degree, echo what Tony has said. He's done a great job representing our municipality the last 2 terms. Prior to that, I had the good fortune of sitting on the Grey County Farm Safety Association. Matter of fact, I first sat on it back when I served the last council of St. Vincent Township. At that time, I think there were 19 municipalities represented in Grey County Farm Safety. That has changed substantially, obviously, with amalgamation. I'm concerned about not having a council appointed rep on this committee. First thing comes to mind is, okay, on the list of Grey County councils that are represented, municipality Meaford's name will not be there. And to me, that sends a negative message to our very important rural community. Also sends a negative message to the rest of our members throughout Grey County that, well, you make up your mind what the message says. I think the other thing is that Grey County Farm Safety is not just a farm-related organization. It's a rural organization. We have many rural residents who are not involved in agriculture, but they may very well have a small tractor or a snow blower or a riding lawnmower or a chainsaw or on and on and on. And Farm Safety Organization touches on all of those bases and tries to educate wisdom and safety in that operation. So I don't want us to be removed from the organization. I think well, our rural area is just too important. Arguably our biggest industry. Again, not only just the farming part, but the ag tourism business. And for us to be on the sidelines looking in, I don't think that's adequate. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. The agriculture industry, I said it in my election speech, is the largest industry in the municipality. And I think we should support it, whether we have a representative there or not. I would still like to support the program. If the program saved one life, it's worth it. And I think it saves more than that. I really do. So having said that, and it costs us virtually nothing to do this, and we have a willing representative to be on the board, I see no reason to back away from being on the Farm Safety Board. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. Yeah, you'd think I was back 30 years ago with Reeves. Sorry.
That's okay, Your Worship. Thank you. So I have 2 questions, if I may, through you to Councillor Bell. Would you confirm for me, this is completely a volunteer organization. I know it's chaired by Mayor Paul McQueen from Grey Highlands, and there's no paid staff connected with. No. And are you suggesting, Councillor Bell, that you would be willing to retain your position as a council representative on this committee? Putting you on the spot.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, appointments will be laid out in the future, but I suppose my name could be let stand for that.
Thank you.
And I'd like to hear from our new councillors, their thoughts.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Well, again, being new to the various bodies and one I'm not terribly familiar with, so I would certainly defer to the expertise that Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Bell have obviously expressed, and I respect their opinions and believe that if they feel it has intrinsic value, then I have no problem supporting it.
Thank you. And Brent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for us to show support for our farming in our rural community. There is that saying, if you don't know safety, you will know pain. So I think supporting something like this is very important, whether or not we have a representative from council present or not. Like Councillor Bartley said, I do feel like this would be something that is important for us to support, especially if we do not support it. It looks like we might be the only municipality in the county that does not do that. So, but of course, the information from those councillors that do have more experience than we do, that's very helpful stuff. But I do feel that we should throw our support behind this. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Matt, you'd like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly on the financial support side of things. I know there's a letter on the agenda later on today. My suggestion on that would be to direct the Farm Safety Association to the Wellbeing Bursary Programme, which will be released for applications in the early part of next year once Council's done a little bit of budgeting. I think it's probably better that we do all of the funding for these sorts of organisations as one group through one programme rather than having additional money here, there and everywhere for groups just because they ask at different times.
And I'd just like to make a comment myself in summing up. We've just come through an election in which it's been really driven home to all of us how critically important agriculture is to the economic prosperity of the municipality of Meaford. And I think that it's also well known that farm work is some of the most dangerous work that there is, and also that very often the victims of farm accidents are children. Not necessarily adults. So I would certainly believe that we should continue to have membership in this, and that it's not, I mean, I'm very interested in putting the emphasis on the key areas that will prosper Meaford, like certainly economic development and housing, but I don't think you can talk about agriculture and not be talking about economic development in the same breath. So I would certainly be voting for this to retain our membership in it. And I'm just trying to decide how we might look at voting on these two recommendations. But there's one more item to be discussed, and then we might be able to approve all of them if or Matt, you have a better idea. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think from what I'm hearing that there's an amendment coming forward to remove the words "and Grey County Farm Safety Association" from this motion. So perhaps a member of council might like to table that amendment.
Moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Greenfield, and all in favor. Thank you. Carried. So the last component here is withdrawing from the Northeast Grey Health Clinics Incorporated Board. And who would like to speak to that? Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I have spent 8 years as council representative on this board. Originally, a council member was appointed to this board because there was a $25,000 annual financial support for the board, and that is now ceased. And I think the makeup of the board and their responsibilities has changed somewhat over that time frame as well. The board is no longer responsible for doctor recruitment. The main function of the board is to be landlord over the two medical clinics, our Don Bumpstead here in Meaford and the clinic in Thornbury. And the board is in a reasonably good financial position at this point in time. So I'm personally feeling that I think we can separate ourselves from this board, and certainly that does not preclude myself, for example, or anyone from choosing to be a board member and continuing to do that on an individual basis separate from council. But I think I am comfortable for this council to withdraw representation on that board at this point in time. There's not been really an opportunity to report regularly on the work of the board because a lot of it is almost closed session related and being respectful of their finances and the work related to doctor recruitment, as they were required to do that at that point in time. And with leases of doctors and so on, that is all private information. So there hasn't really been opportunity for me to report to council very often on the work of this board. So I think taking into account all of those comments, I'm suggesting that I am comfortable seeing council remove ourselves from membership on that board at this point in time.
Thank you to Deputy Mayor. Other comments, Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do refer to Deputy Mayor because she's the expert on that. Shirley, would you say that not having a council representative on the board would not harm the operation of our health clinic through the mayor?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Bartley, no, I don't think there's any harm in not having representation. I think there's still, opportunity for collaboration and I may continue to sit on the board. That's a decision I've not yet made. I've been invited to do so. I may, continue in that position, but that's yet to be determined.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. If I may, through you again to the Deputy Mayor. I'm only guessing, but I expect the town of Blue Mountains and perhaps Grey Highlands are involved in this board. Do they have council members continuing to?
Grey Highlands has not been involved, through you, your worship, to Councillor Greenfield. It has just been the town of the Blue Mountains and Meaford with the two clinics. And I do not know at this point what the intentions are of TBM Council.
Councillor Ehrig.
And again, I'll defer to Shirley's comments through your worship, because I do have a question, and I'm not sure this is the proper place. Matt will tell me, but when I was with the President's Chamber, what we had was a scenario where we had rotating councillors come through. We found that very valuable because it enabled them to have different voices at the table, different opinions come through, and also it allowed different work dynamics to work with different people. And I don't know whether some of these committees that we're talking about here, some of these appointments, something like that, Mr. Bell, whether or not that would be of value again, because if different councillors get to see the value of different organizations. I think I was on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and I think some are more logical to have a through line because you're trying to set up a platform where you're dealing with continuity. And I think that makes sense. The chamber, we were dealing with different things on a weekly basis, so it didn't matter as much about that continuity. And I don't know whether these boards kind of have that same criteria, but I just wonder whether there's intrinsic value in having kind of a rotating scenario with some of these, just because it gives us more exposure to them, to different bodies, and to see how they work. Just a thought.
Go ahead, Shirley.
Through your worship, if I may, to Councillor Ehrig, I think in this particular case, there is a level of confidentiality involved regarding the activities of the members of the board. So I don't think this is the right opportunity, although I understand and appreciate what you're suggesting. I don't think this particular board is the right opportunity to have rotating members.
Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I agree with Deputy Mayor Keaveney on the wider scale with regard to this one, but I think if if we weren't to have a formal representative on there will be very little to stop the board when they wanted to inviting a member of council to come and talk to the board about council, or have the board talk to a member of council that then could come back to this table to sort of bring their thoughts forward. I do quite like in general the model that the Councillor Urig is talking about, whether it be formalised or not formalised, because I think it's good to have members of council at meetings where it makes sense for you to be there, rather than being at every conversation about the finances of minor but important organisation X, but being there when they've got something that relates to the municipality or relates to council, I think is good. And so perhaps one of the things that we can do and you can do as you talk to these groups is to remind them all that, you know, they can invite members of council to attend when they see fit, and that would be quite useful. And I think that does apply to this board. But yes, I don't think we can say we'll have a representative, but it'll be a different representative each time for the health clinic.
Other thoughts on it, Brandon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, deferring to the experience that Deputy Mayor Keaveney has. I understand the complications with the level of confidentiality surrounding anything health related. If their board is in good shape, I don't see necessarily an issue with withdrawing from that board, that doesn't mean we necessarily have no contact or relationship. There are still other ways that we can be involved in that as well. But yeah, that's sort of how I'm seeing it with the information that I have to this point.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through your worship to Councillor Forder, there is an annual AGM that any member of the public is welcome to attend. In my 8 years on the board, no one ever has, but there certainly is opportunity for any member of council or of the public to attend that and to get an annual update on the activities of the board, so that we can certainly keep that in mind.
If no one else has a question, I'd just like to ask you, Deputy Mayor, for a comment on what happens if the sole municipal representation on this board, which has services offered in the municipality of Meaford and in the town of the Blue Mountains. Do you have any concerns at all about how that may play out in future?
Through you, or to you, your worship, the current composition of the board, there are members from both town of the Blue Mountains and the municipality of Meaford. Our Rotary clubs are both represented because the Rotary clubs have both supported these clinics financially. So there is representation at that level from Meaford, as well as some other local members. So they try to keep that fairly equal in terms of Meaford and TBM membership. And as I suggested, I may continue, whether I continue on my own or as a representative from Rotary. I do have an interest in the work of the boards. And anyway, I will make that determination, and I will come back and let council know what my position is on that board if I do have one.
Thank you very much. So I believe we're in a position here to approve the balance of this recommendation. So just to be clear what we're voting on here, we have already determined we've voted an alternative motion on number 2, but to approve number 1, enact a bylaw to appoint members of council to boards and committees, and number 2, direct staff to provide notice of withdrawal from the Northeast Grey Health Clinics Incorporated Board. That's what we're voting on, and all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. The final item under community services here is the heritage designation request. The recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford direct staff to appoint a heritage expert to peer review the draft designation report for the property at 205294 Highway 26, following the passage of Bill 23 in the Ontario Legislature. And what we've been presented with today is the fact that Bill 23 has been passed by the legislature. So perhaps some advice as to the best course of action here. Your thoughts, Matt?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think that the motion as it stands is okay. We have not received formal notice from the legislature. We're picking this up from the Toronto Star and from CBC, who I'm sure are correct. But I've just been on the Queen's Park website for e-laws, and nothing's been updated on there yet. So I think the fact that it says following the passage of Bill 23 in the Ontario legislature was really to say what the timeline of hiring a peer reviewer would be. And so if by the time council passes this, that's already happened, would just be able to go ahead and do a peer review immediately.
Okay, thank you. I think that we have an alternative motion. Can you speak to that, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I will. I had a question, first of all, something that Mr. Sullivan said in his presentation to us, that it is more common for a heritage committee to designate a part 4, such as we're looking at, than it is a council. Is that common practice?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, before I answer that question, my wonderful deputy clerks reminded me that we need a mover and a seconder to have this one on the table, please.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Moved by Councillor Bartley, second by Councillor Forder. And all in favor?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, okay.
No voting yet.
We'll catch on.
To answer your question, I think what Mr. Sullivan said, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, was that it's more common for a heritage committee to do this than a heritage expert. Council still has to be the one that passes bylaws to designate something. The answer to whether that is correct or not is that I simply don't know the answer. And that really is sort of the thrust of this report in general, I'll be honest, which is heritage falls under the clerk because, as with much legislation, the legislation says the clerk holds the register. It doesn't really mean that the clerk knows an awful lot about it, but I'm one of the few jobs that has to exist. My colleagues in the planning team know a bit more, but I think we all feel on the same page in that we just don't have heritage experience in-house. And so part of the reason that we think there should be a peer review is to have somebody else other than us sort of double check the committee's work, not because we think the committee's work is wrong, because we just don't know whether it's right or not.
And if I may carry on, Your Worship, thank you. And my thoughts, and I appreciate what you're suggesting, Mr. Smith, and I think, we should, gather some expertise in this area. I think in this particular case, though, it appears to me that the experts that we have locally who have worked on our heritage committee for a number of months, as we heard, I believe 20 months in looking at this application, and with it not requesting any taxation reduction or financial support of any nature, and recognizing that there is a suggested motion included within this report that would allow the go forward for this particular designation, I would like to move that we take that stance and that we go forward with the motion that is presented in the report, and that we also look forward to our budget process and perhaps include the amount that I believe you suggested, $3,000, and that we include that amount in our budget so that we can have a greater understanding of how to look at these particular requests and designations going forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to respond to that slightly. We put the motion in the report because absolutely, I think if council wishes to move forward, then that's absolutely what you should do. One note of caution is that if in fact Bill 23 has been passed, it does change the criteria for meeting the regulatory standard for designation. And again, I just don't know if what's been prepared meets that higher standard. The other is that, and I did mention in a conversation with the Deputy Mayor that we estimated it would cost about $3,000 to have somebody do the peer review of this. It would cost significantly more than that to have some resources available to us on an ongoing basis to give us heritage advice. That's kind of an estimate for somebody looking at what the Heritage Advisory Committee members have produced and letting us know whether it makes sense or not. If we were talking about a heritage consultant to help us on a regular basis, we'd be into the tens of thousands of dollars.
And I submit that it wouldn't shock me that if we are not going to need heritage advice going forward, because we're trying to grow a heritage downtown. at any rate, I take it your thought here is that Bill 23 will knock us out of the ballpark if we don't take your approach that you're suggesting, because I think my own thought here was that we would simply proceed to advertise the designation and move forward and see if Bill 23 does in fact.
So through you again, I cannot be certain about this. I do not believe council should do anything based on the thought that it'll be okay because we advertise it quickly enough. Because if indeed Bill 23 is passed today, it's passed today. I also don't know whether, even if it hasn't passed today, if we advertise it today, that gets it in under the wire on the old regulations or not. I think you should make your decision based on whether you want to designate this property as a heritage building or not on the timelines of other legislation.
Okay, through your worship, and I'm looking for clarification. I understand that this particular request for designation already meets 2 of the criteria required, which Bill 23 speaks to, that no longer a Part 4 can be created with 1 criteria, there must be 2, and this property already meets 2. So therefore, I'm feeling relatively safe going forward with the motion as presented in this report.
Through you, Ms. Matt, and that may absolutely be the case. As again, we just don't feel like we've got the confidence to know that. But if council wants to move forward, then you should move forward.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my past life, I had a building that somebody else wanted to declare heritage, and I didn't want that noose around my neck. But here we have a particular building that the owners want this. I think we have the expertise in the room. I think they spent 8 months on it, and they've crossed their T's and dotted their I's. And I would like to move forward with the motion that is put in here, which does not put any money aside. I don't think we need to spend money at this time. I think we need to just move forward as the motion states in the agenda. Thank you.
And is there a seconder for that motion? Tony? And any discussion on the motion?
So,
You'd like to speak.
just for clarity, so that everybody, especially at home, knows exactly what we're doing. I think we've got the deputy mayor moving and Councillor Bartley seconding the motion that's on page 4 of the report, which says that the motion be amended by replacing the text with that committee of the whole recommend council of the municipality of Meaford direct staff to provide public notice of its intent to pass a bylaw to designate the property at 205-294 Highway 26 as a Part 4 property under the Ontario Heritage Act.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm certainly quite comfortable with that suggestion. I do have one question through you to Matt or perhaps Mr. Voigt. Once this heritage designation goes on, and I don't know how much property is with this particular property. I don't know if it's just a lot with the house and the 2-car garage, or if there's some acreage with it. I'm just wondering, does this, if indeed it is a bigger parcel, does this heritage designation eliminate any chance for a severance or any other activity in the future, or is that just not involved at all?
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. To answer your question, I think it's 0.9 of an acre. It's a narrower strip. I don't think you'd ever be able to divide it. Thank you. Oh, no, I went into Grey County GIS and whatnot.
Sorry. Yes, Mr. Voigt.
Through your worship, all I can say is that once it's designated, any implications of that on neighboring sites or changes to the building and that fall then under the restrictions associated with the designated building. And if someone, let's say, future heirs that now own this building want to make a change or whatever, they will have to follow the standards of what appears to be a bit of a changing dynamic on heritage requirements. So this is something that carries on with this building and the lands it sits on, you know, for the foreseeable future till the end of time, until something changes.
And if I can speak, you know, with my chair of the Heritage Committee hat on, that's exactly what we're about, because this is the last remaining building of that community. And when it's gone, there is no Bayview. So I think that, you know, and I certainly applaud the efforts that the Heritage Committee has made, you know, to work with the Harrisons and make this happen. So are we ready for the vote? Any more comments? All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, Matt.
Here's we get into the boring technical stuff, because that was technically an amendment. We now need to vote again on that new motion that was just the section that I read out.
Okay. So can you tell us what we're voting on then, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the new motion that's before council or before committee of the whole is simply that committee of the whole recommend council of the municipality of Meaford direct staff to provide public notice of its intent to pass a bylaw to designate the property at 205-294 Highway 26 as a Part 4 property under the Ontario Heritage Act.
All in favor? Thank you. Declared carried. So moving on, where am I here again? Community. Yes. Okay. Yes. BI dissolution and strengthening of the downtown economic development. And this is Community Services Report 2022-32. So the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, enact a bylaw to dissolve the Meaford Business Improvement Area. 2, direct staff to include funding to support the founding of a Main Streets organization in the 2023 operating budget. And 3, direct staff to recruit board members for a Main Streets organization, including representation from municipal staff, and undertake the necessary steps to develop an active Main Streets organization. So yeah, we need a mover and a secondary. Moved by Tony Bell and seconded by Brandon Forder. So who wants to begin the discussion? Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do want to speak first, and thank you for that. So first of all, it does sadden me after 8 years of being on the BIA. I have to tell you that I have witnessed some well-attended meetings at the BIA where there was people with vested interest that showed up at meetings, and there was really good direction and conversation. I've also been at those meetings of the BIA where we failed to even have quorum. I have seen sometimes the current format of the BIA. There's a desire by those in attendance sometimes that being an arm of the current sitting members of council, that it's an extension, that they take the code of conduct, and there's all of those rules that they're under, that there's been a thought that sometimes it doesn't really fit them so well, that they would like to have more latitude. And I've heard that. I know that there's a desire, and it's actually needed, that there needs to be a new directive for revitalization downtown. We've talked about that a lot at the current BIA structure. I've talked with the person who is the chair quite a few times about businesses who get a tax levy to belong to this, who don't feel that they need to come out even once or twice a year to hear what's going on. And we just couldn't put our finger on why there wasn't buy-in on it. And so we've had a lot of reflection, but I'm going to tell you that Councillor Uhrig, in his announcements at the beginning of this council session, talked about the activity of Christmas on the Bay. And I think that's a shining beacon of, it was one of the things that this BIA currently formatted that really bought into. They could really see that this was going to be a success. And I know that most members of senior staff have attended meetings of the BIA. CIO's been there, and you, Mr. Clerk, and Mr. Voigt, when they were doing the new, what is our strategic plan for the future on. So all of us know about the format of the BIA. And I said that I was saddened to see this, that recommends that it be dissolved. I still feel that way. But I do truly recognize there needs to be a new revitalization and a difference for the downtown core. I have one question, and it's about the finances. The report says that any of the finances that are in place, that it would be basically taken over by the municipality of Meaford. The funds that have been there for a long time, they would be under the control of the municipality of Meaford. How, Mr. Clerk, does this affect the upcoming event for Christmas on the Bay, when one of the last things that was talked about at the BIA was some signing authority at a bank in order to do the commerce for that event? So that's my question. But as far as this dissolving of it, I am sad to say that I think I can support moving into something different. But that is my question, Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I don't think there's a problem there at all. This wouldn't take effect until whatever date we decided to take effect from, likely January 1st, because that's when the tax year starts. So any event that's happening now and the money that's been committed for 2022 would still continue through in the same way. I actually think that while Christmas on the Bay is a wonderful example of something that the BIA has been involved in, I think actually a Main Streets organisation will be able to support an event like that much better than the BIA can. There's been a number of procedural issues associated with Christmas on the Bay and the BIA, and some difficulty in making decisions quick enough, or some of the as Councillor Urick said to me in a different context earlier, the legalese surrounding BIAs has made that a little more difficult, whereas a volunteer-driven Main Streets organisation as a not-for-profit would be much better place to be able to deal with some of these things than we are with the relationship as it is right now. When I talked in the report about the municipality taking on sort of some of the money, we wouldn't take on any of the existing money. The 23,000 approximately that's taken in through the BIA levy every year would disappear. The businesses downtown would no longer receive that tax bill. So when I talk about the municipality having to take some things on, I'm talking around about the sort of the $3,000 or so that the BIA gives back to the municipality for downtown beautification, for instance. And I've chatted to Rod Willis about this, and he and I agree that that's not necessarily anything we'd even have to put as an additional cost in the budget. We can just rejig things and so on. So I think those bits that the BIA is currently doing that there wouldn't be tax income for anymore, I don't see those as being an issue in this new format. I think that over time, as a Main Streets organisation grew, then maybe some of those things would come back. It might be that in the future, a Main Streets organisation would like to say, we'd like more beautification downtown, in which case some of their budget could come to some of that sort of thing. So I don't see that those transfers of money being an issue. And as I say, I think the stuff that the BIA has been doing recently around events will be much better served by a Main Streets organisation than by the BIA.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I just want to thank staff for this report. I'm more excited about this report than I have been about reports for a long time. I think this is really good and productive and solid. There are several points in it that really strike home for me. One, of course, that the boundaries of the BIA are now removed, and that businesses on the outskirts of the core economic district can now really be part of the events that are happening. And I think we are so blessed that we have some new entrepreneurial business owners in our midst who really want to do great work and to make our downtown vibrant and to be inclusive of everyone, and they are great at promoting, and we know their success from the Summerfest this past summer and the Halloween event, and I say get out of their way and let them have at it. My favorite line, I think, in this whole report is building a community entrepreneurial ecosystem. That just really resonated with me because what I'm seeing is our businesses working together like they have not done in a very long time. They are predominantly all new. They're supporting each other. They're collaborative. They're involving each other in all of their events and in their brainstorming. And collectively, they are creating a downtown atmosphere and energy that is just incredible. So I am completely behind this. And again, I really thank staff for bringing the idea forward of this change to the BIA. I think this Main Street organization is going to be hugely successful. And we as councillors are going to be very busy attending events over the next while. Thank you.
Councillor,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I echo all of Deputy Mayor's sentiments here. I think this is a phenomenal program. I've been following some Main Street programs in other municipalities. There are thousands of them across North America that have achieved great levels of success. The Main Street formula is all about embodying that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think we already have that in town. And I feel like if we can nurture that, there's no limit to what we can achieve as far as this revitalization of the downtown core and extending outwards from there. I would just like to say that I think this is a really positive initiative and it has the potential to significantly benefit or significantly affect the vibrancy of our downtown core, as well as the overall success of businesses in Meaford. There are going to be a lot of questions that arise from this proposal, but I don't think it's anything that won't be answered as the committee framework develops. But I'm fully behind this, and I think this is a fantastic initiative. Thank you.
Rob?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I'll echo Mr. Bell's comments because I was the chamber rep on the BIA for last while, and this is not to disparage the BIA in any way, shape, or form because there were dedicated individuals on there who did great work and great efforts and great intent. So kudos to them and to your effort, Mr. Bell, and working with them over the last few, however long that was, 2 terms. But I also echo Councillor Keaveney's or his deputy. Yeah, you're wow. Yeah. Whoever you are. That what I like about this is it does remove the barrier. And I think what this creates is a bridge, because what we've had again is this whole long-standing conversation about this divide, and the BIA was seen as this kind of insular little body downtown, and we need to build these bridges between not just here, but it's not just Main Street, it's going to be everywhere in the municipality. So we get leaders from rural as well as urban that can kind of work on this and to create a sense of unity. That's gonna benefit everyone from an economic development stature. So I'm totally in favor with it because I think there's great opportunity for this to be a great boon to the municipality as a whole and a sense of community. So I'm all in favor of it.
Councillor Greenfield?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks to all my fellow council members. I had 2 questions until a minute ago, and I think Councillor Urick has answered the first one. I was concerned that I hadn't read in the report anything that convinced me there would be cooperation and collaboration with and economic enhancement for the entire municipality. But I think what I'm hearing from Councillor Urick is yes, the ag farm related businesses and the wineries, the cideries, this is going to be all inclusive. This isn't just a more urban practice, and I'm really glad to hear that. I think that's essential, that we need to involve the business section in the entire municipality. I really liked the heritage revitalization is mentioned in the report, and I like that term. That's one I picked as a favorite. I'm wondering now, currently, unless this has happened just in the last very recent past, our municipality does not have an economic development manager or officer. I'm thinking that position's likely going to be replaced, and through your worship to Mr. Armstrong, I guess if indeed that does happen, what role will they have with this new organization?
Yeah, to your worship, part of our after Janet left and we've done a bit of a reorganization, we're going to be recruiting a economic development coordinator who will be working very closely with the planning team and Rob Voigt to help work with this organization to get it up and going. So we got very much involved. That when we speak in the report of resourcing it, that will be through that entity.
Matt?
I think just to add to that, I think Rob Voigt has a great perspective on this, having been involved in some of these organizations before. And some of my colleagues will tell you that I've been looking for ways of sort of doing something different with the BAA for some time. And it's Rob who's sort of really put this direction together. And I think having him involved will really help. I would just say to one of Councillor Greenfield's comments and then one of Councillor Urig's as well, that my understanding of this is that it's focused on an area. It's focused on the main street. So I mean that will be the initial focus. That's not to say it excludes anything, but this isn't the organisation that's going out organising rural events. This is about animating a downtown area, just a broader than the BAA area. But I think it can involve people from all over the place. Our other economic development activities are other activities that can have a much more sort of across the municipality sort of focus, as does the chamber and so on. The other is, I touched a little bit about some of the rules that the BAA has been a little bit of a barrier for some of the events, and what I wouldn't want anybody to think is that this will mean that it's a complete free-for-all. There will still have to be some degree of sort of rules around things like insurance on using municipal property and all those sorts of things for events. But the advantage of this will be that the Main Streets organisation will be able to be the home of all of these types of things. So we'll be able to have one relationship, to have one other organisation that understands what we need in order for an event to be successful and safe and financially viable and all that sort of stuff. So the Main Streets organisation holding their public events policy and the third-party liability policy will mean that, when an entrepreneur wants to run an event through Main Streets, we'll already have all that sort of stuff in place. So it won't be so difficult and onerous for everybody to have to create all these things themselves. I think Rob wanted to mention something.
You have the floor.
Through your worship. There's a couple things I'd just like to note that as it was originally thought out, Main Streets organizations, when they started in the 80s, they were for heritage districts specifically. So they are focused on the, quote, traditional Main Street downtowns. And no matter how rural your community may or may not be, we come into town, into the Main Street environment, for most of our sort of daily needs of commerce and exchange of ideas and cultural events and all that. It doesn't say that there aren't things happening elsewhere as well, but there is a reason downtowns exist. And with the 4-pillar approach that they have, again, as one of the other councillors mentioned, I think that it has, and is in the report, this has running success literally across thousands of communities. It is an organization that once we get it up and running is self-sustaining. So the downtown is no longer, in the terms of what we're talking here, defined as a taxation district. You don't have to be a member if you don't want to. So what does that mean? That means the entrepreneurs, the champions, the people that run with things become members. And that means every person near and far can become a member. I would expect this organization would have something such as Friends of Meaford Main Street, or whatever it's going to be called, that they can help sponsor things, that they can provide some monies for. It's not just taxing a small group of businesses and then asking them to do things that quite frankly, they don't have the financial capacity or even the legal ability to do. So as Matt had said, this really broadens that. So eventually this becomes, as all successful Main Streets organizations do, it is a self-sustaining nonprofit that runs hand in hand with the municipality and whatever support that we can provide. So it is really an organization built for people who want to get things done and have that focus on everything that a downtown Main Street can provide for you.
I was going to say, we haven't heard from Councillor Bartley yet on this. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two queries, actually. The first one is, how is changing the name from BIA to Main Street organization going to make a difference? I don't understand how just changing the name is going to do it. Can somebody explain that to me?
Between us, we can certainly try through you, Mr. Mayor, because I think it's much, much more than changing the name. Moving from a government organization that's hidebound by the Municipal Act rules that were established 60, 70, 80 years ago to a not-for-profit that has the flexibility and freedom to make choices, I think is a huge change. We've seen over the years that I've been here, which pretty much corresponds with Councillor Bell being on the board. We've seen so many people who've wanted to do things at the BIA not be able to do things at the BIA because awkward people like me say, I'm sorry, that's not allowed. Mostly it is, yes. I think in an organization like this, and Rob will talk more about his experiences doing it, there will still inevitably be some rules. There are not-for-profit laws that everybody has to abide by. There are things that the municipality will always need, but there'll be much more flexibility for an entrepreneur to say, or a group of interested individuals say, we really want to do this, and actually just make it happen.
Good. Thank you, Matt. For the second query, money. I really hesitate accepting something before I see the budget. This budget scares the willies out of me. Having said that, we're relying on the 25,000 for the health clinic for the first couple of years. Are you telling me the health clinic hasn't approached us to prolong their payment? Will they? Is this money, can we use it for the next 3 or 4 years? Because and then when it says it's self-sustaining, is membership pay a fee to be a member of this? Is that how it's self-sustaining?
So I'll talk about the health unit and then I'll let Rob talk about the membership. We understand, and I can't be specific about it at this stage because we haven't had the formal request, that the North East Grey Health Clinic won't be coming and asking for a cash donation at the end of this 25,000. I suspect there'll be some sort of in-kind situation, but that wouldn't affect the bottom line of the budget. So it's our belief that this money will be spare, for want of a better word, to reallocate to something else that benefits the community.
So when you say in kind, a tax relief still hits the budget.
If it is a tax relief, yes, it affects the tax rate, not the budget. So the equivalency would be spread across all of the taxpayers, which would be a very small amount per property.
I think that Councillor Yurig is next, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Matt and Rob. So yeah, I understand the criteria about the heritage. What I'm hoping that what this is going to do is cultivate a sense of cooperation. So what to me, and when I read that, and I had an interesting chat with Matt before the meeting today, and we talked about interpretation. Because when you read this, you could look at this as within the boundaries, and Main Street may not be the best name for it because it does strictly make you think that it's going to be downtown Meaford. Whereas what I interpret this as an opportunity for truly all-encompassing community involvement. So when you're going to have something in Meaford, why could that not be also located, whatever that event is, also be in Woodford or Bognor and Leith and Annan as an extensions of that event, or as it being businesses are participating. Whenever we do a lot of events in this town, we try and incorporate those smaller rural communities to make sure that they are part of that. So I envision it as being more of a collection or a collective of people that have the best interest of everybody in mind, both rural and urban. And yes, this is the economic driver because of populace and we're the business locale, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't also potentially help and assist the agribusinesses and the smaller hamlets that surround us. So to me, we need to drive the bus that creates what this entity is going to be, as opposed to sitting back and saying, well, it's Main Street, so it doesn't include that. I think hopefully we have the interpretation to be able to say what this will become and develop it accordingly.
Thank you. And Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. On my first comments, Councillor Bartley, when I said about the municipality and the money is in the report, the BIA's long-term reserves. I think it was listed at $60,000. And so that's going to form part of the seed money that's going to be required to help this for a period of time. I'm correct in that reading? Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Voigt.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's a couple things on the councillor's comments about the scope of this. And I understand where they come from. I would just caution us to go down that path. As stated, the Main Street's approach is to be focused on a geographic downtown area with literally decades and thousands of communities experience in that. Nothing against the smart people around this table or in our community. That's something that works and has been proven to work across decades, which are very, very few systems are that robust. If we try to create the Meaford version of that and explode some of the core aspects of it, I believe we will be diluting its potential success. Maybe the idea of going broader is some of the things that we need to do to bring these ideas into something broader, but that focus on the downtown, we need to have that energy of that kind of activity happening. One of the challenges we've been having, and many small communities have, is this: what we end up doing is diluting things, and you don't get that vibrancy of activity. There was comments about, how it can sustain itself. Well, of course, through memberships, sponsorships, gifts. The main thing is that it's not a taxation that's required on downtown businesses. Again, it's those people that want to participate. This is one of those things that will succeed because the people in the community want it to succeed, not because government is there making it be a thing. And so that's something that we really all need to step up and make sure that it succeeds in that way. I recall when I was working with Main Street's organizations out in Washington, and then some work in Chicago as well with their national conference. This is going back a bunch of years. I haven't been able to find the latest stats, but in the early 2000s, they were talking about their first 20, 30 years of success. And for every dollar spent in a Main Street's organized district, they were getting a $34 return. I'd be surprised if anyone could show me a BIA that's able to do that anywhere, because of the restrictions that Matt was saying, because they have only two things they can do. And this allows them to be far more nimble and attack challenges that being outside of the arm of government lets business organize itself as a nonprofit to do things that are supportive of business and culture.
Is there any more discussion at this point? I might just add, if I could, that in my business past, I was a member of a DIA in Owen Sound. And, it was always just, dissatisfaction with what you got for your money, an added tax that produced very little and wore people out and never had sufficient funds to really accomplish anything. And I believe Owen Sound has now gone on to what they call their, river district. And I think that must be a spinoff on the same theme, I would think. Do you know about it, Matt?
So I believe Owensound have done a couple of different things. They disbanded their BAA board a couple of years ago. That might be the wrong phrase. They used the money to pay for free parking downtown, in effect. So all of the BAA budget was doing that. I believe the Riverside DIA, Downtown Improvement Area, which is a BIA under the Municipal Act, it's just a different name. I don't know whether that's just an adaptation of the existing one or whether they've established a second BIA area to focus in on a more narrow area, but it is still under the BIA auspices, I believe.
Anyway, I would like to add my congratulations to staff on what I think is a really vital initiative at this point in time, and something that I would even call positive change. So are we ready for the vote? All in favor? Thank you very much. So we're now at the point in our meeting where we get updates from members appointed to county council committees and local boards, and I'll call on Deputy Mayor Shirley Keaveney for a report from county council.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Grey County Council last met on November the 10th. Apart from the 2 very busy days of training that we had last week, and we have 2 more this week. So that was the last meeting for that particular term of council, and the meeting was called to order for the final time by Warden Selwyn Hicks. We began with a moment of silence in honor of Remembrance Day. Dr. Ayres spoke to the Board of Health minutes and shared that the recent surge of COVID has been for the most part mitigated. Not sure we would agree with that now a couple of weeks later. A grant of $110,000 was received by the Board of Health, which will be directed towards the promotion and execution of opioid initiatives. The major report of the day was prepared by the Planning Department and consisted of recommendations to be sent to the province regarding Bill 23. So timely that we had that announcement today. County staff identified some concerns related to the evaluation of affordable housing. The province suggested 80% or less of the regular price of a home could be considered affordable or attainable. So if a house is priced at $1 million and the developer takes that cost to 80% of the value, or $800,000, it's then considered affordable. And we all know that that number is not. Another concern was with development charges becoming exempt on all of these so-called affordable builds. And lower tiers will have a significant development charge gap if this goes through, which it sounds like it may. And this certainly poses a challenge for us and all municipalities as we rely on DC funding for capital infrastructure projects. So the other point that staff were concerned about is that 60% of DCs collected must be allocated during that year of collection. And this creates difficulty in saving monies for large capital projects such as our own wastewater treatment plant. Purpose-built rentals are exempt from DCs and have been. The Ontario Land Tribunal will also have additional powers related to official plan amendments and zoning requests. So I know we'll hear about that as time goes by, and our own staff update us on Bill 23. All of the members, 9 of them who were not returning to the new council, shared very kind remarks, speaking about the professionalism of staff and the commitment of council to move Grey County forward during the challenges of the pandemic. And that was a sad moment because we had 9 members not elected or retiring and 9 returning. Warden Hicks gave his final address to council and spoke of the accomplishments of the past 4 years, including financial support for the Rockwood Terrace rebuild in Durham, the new nursing wing at Georgian College, the public process and passing of official plan amendment 11. And let me tell you, that was a big deal. The age-friendly master plan, climate action plan, 2 years of COVID emergency, Grey Bruce Transit, 7 road resurfacing projects, and an updated asset management plan, and more. Selwyn was the first warden of a visible minority elected in Grey County, so his terms were special. And that really was it for that particular meeting. And normally I would ask Mayor Klumpus if she had anything to add, but Mayor Kentner was not present, so we'll leave my remarks there.
But we have been together for 2 full days, most enjoyable. And I've believed for a long time that Grey County Council is, first of all, it has many important deliverables for us. But beyond that, I think they are kind of on the leading edge in a number of areas. And I think that we really need to work closely to try and, if we want to advance our economic development and tourism and housing issues, we'll do well to dovetail our activities closely with the county and hopefully get support that we otherwise wouldn't have. And we had a couple of really busy days just learning more about what is going on at the county level. Are there any other boards or committees wishing to report today? If not, I think we're at the point where we could entertain a motion to move out of committee of the whole. And that's moved by Councillor Greenfield and seconded by Councillor Bartley. All in favor? Thank you. So now, councillor motions. Do we have any notices of motion? Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Going back to the May the 30th of 2022, I brought forward a motion regarding short-term accommodation rentals. And I think recognizing during the campaign period, and I know we all heard it, I think we received more comments and concerns regarding short-term accommodations, Airbnbs, and so on than I think we did on almost any other topics. So I wanted to revisit that motion of May the 30th and suggest an additional motion that could move forward some action, some regulations, inspections, whatever staff feel may be appropriate, because I am hoping to have something in place before the season, so to speak, before May 24th of 2023. So I would look to Director Voigt, of course, and our CAO, Rob Armstrong, to help me with the language for this report, because it's really critical and important. And we'll have that motion on our next agenda.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's soon budget time, and I have brought forward a policy for the municipality that the staff needs a figure to put on the budget, to bring a budget forward to us. And I brought forward a policy that it'll be 1%. I don't want to discard that policy. I want to keep with that policy. But this year is unlike any other year with inflation that I've been involved with in budgets. And I'm going to bring a motion forward to maybe change that figure for this year only, so that they can bring a budget forward that we could seriously look at. Because there's no reason for staff to put 1% on this budget coming forward and us realistically passing that. So I'm not sure how I'm going to word it, but I'm going to bring a motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay. We have the adoption of minutes for the meeting on November 7th, and also the planning public meeting on the same date. The recommendation is resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on November 7th and planning public meeting held the same date. Do we just vote on that at this point? Do I have to ask for a mover and seconder? Okay, mover is Councillor Bartley. Seconder is Councillor Bell. And any discussion? Councillor Bell?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an error on item H, which is on page 38, where it records other boards and committees. Says that Council Department provided an update for DIA and the week level.
Correction noted. Anything else? All in favor then of accepting this? And communications, is there anything on the communications list that anyone wishes to raise? Seeing none, we have a confirming, anything on the correspondence list? Anyone? Yeah. Councillor Greenfield.
I was going to suggest we bring forward a motion to support correspondence number 21, which was from Prince Edward County, with some criticism of Bill 23, but I unfortunately, I don't think that's necessary or appropriate now.
Is the
Very-
barn out of
very
the, is the horse out of the barn? I guess, okay. That covers correspondence. Sorry, oh, yes, please.
Your worship, thank you, and I apologize for interrupting. I just thought we should address item D, the letter from the Grey County Farm Safety Association dated November the 18th, 2022. And I'd just like to suggest perhaps that there be a response to Mayor Paul McQueen, just in reflection of our conversation today and the approach for the committee to take in relation to requesting funding from the municipality of Meaford.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we will tell them about the community wellbeing bursary program, and as with all previous recipients, we will let them know when we open that for applications, and they'll be able to apply through the normal channels.
Okay. We have a confirming bylaw, and it is resolved the bylaw 2022-79 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Municipality of Meaford at its regular and special meetings held in the month of November 2022 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I believe we're ready to adjourn. And anything else? Otherwise, that's it.
No.
That's it. Thank you.